In this video, I will be showing you how to enter data into the disproportionality analysis chart in order to see the disproportionality, if any, in your district. This chart has several tabs, one with directions that explains the data that you will be looking at and what you will be pulling. And then you have the Enter Data Here tab. And this is where you will enter all your data in order for it to be calculated into the charts on the following tabs. We also have an example set up for you. So once data is entered for student enrollment and then students with disabilities, you'd be able to see your risk index as well as your risk ratio for students with disabilities. In this example, we're looking at intellectual disability. And we can see that disproportionality exists for Black or African American students in this example. Disproportionality is anything that's over, any calculation that's going to be equal to or over 3.0. So we can see that this is 3.46. Now I'll show you where to get the information for entering into your disproportionality chart. The first row is your student enrollment, and this data has been provided to you in a link in the instructions document. You can see that we have the instructions document here. If you click this link, we've given you access to your enrollment data by LEA and race. That will open an Excel chart by LEA and race. And for this video, we're going to be using Cumberland County Schools. And all we need to do is copy the row without the total of the race categories and the numbers of students. So I've copied that row, and I'm going back to my disproportionality analysis chart, and I'm just going to paste that data into the row. You can see that my total is automatically calculated. Next, I'll show you how to pull your disability information from ECATS. So again, in this example, we're using Cumberland County Schools. So I'm going to go to Standard Reports, Special Education, and then Child Count. You can run this report two ways. The first way is by using your December 2020 or December child count of whichever year you're looking at. If you use your December child count after it's been certified, then you would use your OSEP final reporting database. This will give you the same calculations of disproportionality that the state uses for our calculations. So for our example, we're going to use December 2020, and we would just click Generate Report. If you use the transactional database, depending on what month of the year you're in, for example, currently we're in February. If I wanted to run using my April 2021 count to find out where my disproportionality stands currently, I could use that. It's important to remember that if you use your April child count or any future child count, if the student's IEP expires prior to April 1 or December 1, when using transactional, those students would not be on the report. However, it could be a helpful tool to allow you to see where your district stands with disproportionality at the current time. So I've already run the report for Cumberland, and if I go to My Reports, you can see my child count report. So if I open this up, I will come to my Excel spreadsheet with my child count report. I do need to clean this up a little bit in order to make it fit into our disproportionality chart. So the first thing I'm going to do is delete the first 5 rows. I'll highlight them and then right-click and click delete. The next thing I need to do is clean up my race column. As you can see on our disproportionality chart, we only have the 7 federal races. However, in our child count, we have multiple different options, especially when it comes to 2 or more. So I'm going to highlight the first row and click Filter from my Data tab. So highlight row, Data, and then Filter. This will allow me to filter my races however I like. So I'm going to start with Hispanic. And that's because if Hispanic is selected for any student, that is the race that they will be reported on at the federal level, regardless of whether or not other races are selected. So I'm going to type in HI7 in my first row, and then I'm going to copy that, scroll all the way down, hold my Shift key, and click on the bottom row, and then paste my copy so that all of my students with any combination of HI7 have now been updated to HI7 only. The next one I need to clean up is my 2 or more. So in order to do that, I need to unselect any of my single races. So the first thing I'll do is click Select All, and then I'll come in and unselect my single races, and there should be 6 of them. So the first one is American Indian, Alaskan Native, and we see AM7. The second one is Asian, AS7. Third one is Black or African American, BL7. Then I have Hispanic, HI7, Pacific Islander, PI7, and White, WH7. So when I unselect those and click OK, that should leave me with just my races of 2 or more. So I'm going to go to the top row and type in 2 or more. And then I'll copy that, scroll all the way down to the bottom again, hold my Shift key, and click to select the whole row. Then I can paste or use Control B so that now I only have my 7 race categories for all students. I can select all, and we've got a nice clean race field to work with. Okay, now I need to create a pivot table so I can get my aggregate numbers of students for my district. So I'm going to click in this top left corner to select the whole sheet, and then I'm going to click Insert, Pivot Table. When I do that, I'll get a pop-up that says Create Pivot Table, and I'll click OK, and it'll bring me to a new sheet where I can start working on my table. Now we know that we need disability, so we'll take our exceptionality category and drop it there, and that will give us our disabilities. The next thing we're going to need is our races, and I'll drop that there, and you can see that we have our races. And then in order to get our student numbers, so I've dropped exceptionality category into my rows and race into my columns. Now I'm going to take student ID and put that into my values. and that will give me a count of student IDs for each of my race columns and my exceptionality rows. In order to get rid of these blank columns, I'm going to drop down my race and unselect blank. And now I no longer have blanks for my races nor my exceptionalities. Okay, so now we can start to copy information in to our disproportionality spreadsheet. So going back, you can see that we have total students with disabilities, and then starting at the top, the first one we're going to get is our autism count. So AU is going to be your first column. So you'll highlight everything except for the grand total in your AU row. Copy and paste. And again, we get our total. We'll go back down to ED, and paste. Our next disability is going to be ID, and that's going to include all three IDMI, IDMO, and IDSE. And the way that we can get this total, let me see if I can filter it, is by dropping down our exceptionality category, unselecting all, and only selecting the three ID categories. When you do that, your grand total is going to be your total ID. So I'm going to take my total for ID, copy that, and paste it into the sheet. We'll continue to work down, and our next one is going to be LD. So dropping down our filter for exceptionality categories, we can go back to all. So just drop down, select all, and click OK. Okay, now we're broken back down by our disability categories. So the next one we're going to take is LD, copy, and paste. And then next is our OHI, or OH, copy, and then SI, and finally we're going to take our all students with disabilities. So that's going to be your grand total row without the total, copy, and paste. So now we've completed our chart, and we should be able to go to our identification worksheets and see our charts filled in. So let's see how it worked. There you go. So this first one that we're looking at is our all students with disabilities. So this would be our total students with disabilities. And as you can see, we've now filled in our bar chart is visible to us. And we can see it by our race categories. One thing to remember about this tool is that if you choose to download it into Excel, sometimes our legends are not showing up as well as our data tables. So make sure that if you do download it, you may have to create a new chart in order to see everything you want to see correctly. Otherwise, I'd advise using it in Google. But you can go on through the tabs and you can see that each one of those have now been filled in with the data from our data table. So you've got it for ID, ED, all of the different disabilities that we have listed on our Enter Data table. I hope this video has been helpful to you. to be able to pull your information from the two data sources of student enrollment and ECATS in order to look at your disproportionality. Thank you.